Okay, everyone, this is Dr. Marston recording the video lecture for week number 4 of of quantitative research. Sorry, I didn't forget the name of the class. I just want to make sure everything's up and running here the way it should. Okay, we're going to cover a couple things in this lecture. We're going to talk about population sampling issues in quantitative research, and we're also going to talk about validity issues in quantitative research. But what I want to talk about today, what I want to start with today is I'm going to talk about SPSS. And I have a slideshow here um, that I think is particularly useful um, for understanding SPS. If you give me a second here. All right. I'm just going to, here we go. Okay. I'm going to, um, okay. I have a slideshow here that covers a lot of about SPS. There's a couple of reasons why I'm talking about. One is we don't actually use SPSS in this course. We don't use any statistical package here. But when we met for the last class, I asked if any of you had experience with SPSS, and it seemed to be that you either had none or very limited experience with SPS or actually any statistical package. So even though we don't use it in this class, I wanted to at least um, go through part of this lecture on talking a little bit more about what a PSS is so that you um, have some leave this course with some familiarity. Now, there are other statistical packages out there. SPSS is the most prominent, the most popular, the most widely used. Um, and the way you get it is it's just a program that you get it through IBM, and I have this slideshow here. Now, what I like about this slideshow was it's on mine. It was developed, as you can see here, from professors who teach in Ethiopia. And what I like about this, why I'm using this one, even though it's not a psychology um, slideshow, what I like about it is they have a lot of material in here that shows what the actual parts of SPS look like. So you get a little bit of um, a view of what the different sections of SPS look like. So I'm not just telling you about the sections, I'm actually going to be able to show you what the sections look like. Uh, um, it's Windows based. It actually started as a social science. It's now in the 27th version. When I had it in graduate school a number of versions ago, it was a computer, it was almost like its own language. Um, and now it's more, it looks a lot like Excel. You'll see as I show you what the different parts here look like that it looks very similar to Excel. Now I realize that Excel you also can do statistics in, but this has even more um, statistical tests that you can do and is considered much more statistics based. Now, just for your reference, there are two other programming languages that are used a lot in statistics. One is called R, excuse me, called R, just the letter R, and the other is called Python. Those are two very popular, very widely used computer languages that are specifically used for statistics. Um, they tend to be used for the more complex statistical tests. SPSS is more the traditional stats, and if someone needs to do stats with larger or more larger databases or more complex statistics, they might use R or Python instead. But SPSS is still the most common um, statistical package in the social sciences. SPSS stands for Statistical Package for Social Sciences. And as it says here, it can perform highly complex data manipulation analysis with simple instructions. So, you've got just some details about it. You can input data from Excel and SAS. SAS is another statistical program. And SAS is considered to be a much less robust program. It doesn't handle complex statistical tasks as well as SPSS does. These are just some strengths and weaknesses here. What I really wanted to get to was the part where we um, so these are some things. Now this is you may have caught that one thing here. Let me just when this was written, it was the SPSS 21 was out, but they used SPS 17 in the lecture. Now SPSS is now at like 24, I think it is. Um, but that doesn't, it basically comes out a new one every year. And the new versions don't change very much anymore. So even though this is 7 versions ago from the newest one, it's still very similar. And like I said, I just wanted to use it to show you what some of the parts um, look like. So what you have here at the top, what you have here at this part here at the top, is what is called the data editor view. And what that does is um, this is what a data set would look like. These things at the top would be the variables, and these things down the side usually would be reserved for the subject numbers. So um, if you have 38 subjects, you'd go 1 through 38 here. And then the variables would be across here. The variable names are up here, and then the results for each variable are down here. So you have the data editor, which is the data view, and then the output viewer, which is this is what um, the results look like when you're running statistical tests. Um, the data editor is basically a spreadsheet where and I showed you this on the other page. It's basically a spreadsheet where you where you define, enter, edit, and display the data. Again, as I brought up before, the variable names are up here and the subject numbers are down here, and then the data would be right in here. Um, there's the data view and the variable view. Um, this is the data view right here. This is where you'd see the data. And as you can see, you'd see down here, you choose, well, the thing keeps coming up, but you see that part at the bottom that's in yellow, it says data view. Um, and what you would just do is you would enter the data here. And then notice up here the variable names still haven't changed. It's variable 1, variable 2, variable 3. You put in the variable names in the variable view section of the data set. So again, and this just tells you a little bit more. And then if you click on the variable, it'll tell you a little bit more about what the variable is if you're in data view. Now, okay, here. By choosing variable view is the next thing. You can see that's in yellow down there. that's where you define the variables. So this section up top starts to get changed. That you define what you have as the name of the variables by going to the variable view section. And the variable view shows you the names of the variables. So usually the information you will put in when you're defining the variable is the name that you give to the variables. This is the name that is listed at the top of the data view section. So you would give the name of the variable. You would say what type it is. So if it's numeric, um, if it's ordinal, so the numbers don't, or categorical, so the numbers represent categories, but they don't represent any sort of quantity. Um, Width is the number of um, spaces that should be allotted to the data that you're putting in. Uh, Decimal places, zero would mean it's a whole number and that there are no decimals. Label, so you notice, you may remember at the last, um, when I showed you, uh, let me go back here. When I showed you this part, where you have the variable name at the top, but then if you put the cursor on it, it'll tell you a little bit more about how the variable is defined, what that variable name means. This information here, you put in the variable view section here under the label. This is what you do with the missing data. This is something else you need to worry about now. And then the only rest of this that's particularly relevant if we're not actually putting in data is this part, which basically tells you whether it comes from a scale or whether it comes from a survey, or whether it's a demographic information. That's what that section would represent. Um, okay, and then the way you do that is you um, as you put in the variables, it will give you choices. Different menus will come up that let you choose what sort of variable it is, or the label, and that sort of thing. Okay, let's skip through this. The what SPS will allow you to do is take data that you have maybe from Excel and put it directly into um, into SPSS. So and these are just the steps for doing that. This just walks you through it. I mean, I'll just show you, just so you picture what the screen is. There's an open data section that you choose. So what you would do is you would click on the open data that would be up here under file. You would open a date, it would say open data, and then what would come up is, and it says right here, notice this, from the file menu. So the steps would be file, open data. So what that means is um, you would click on file, and then what would come up is another menu, drop down menu that would give you the chance to hit open, and then you would open a file. And then when you hit that, what ends up coming up is um, it will let you choose the data set that you want to open. And then in this case, it's telling you to just pick an Excel data set, and then all the Excel data sets you have available will come up, and then you just choose the one you want. I'm not going to go to, basically what all this is just shows you that you can also import data directly from an Excel file, as opposed to just having to put it all in again. Okay, so Um, you can also get it from another data set. This would be the step. I don't know if you remember me saying before, but I talked before about uh, secondary data sets, where a lot of times um, researchers will make their data open set. Now, usually that data will be in SPSS as well, but even if it isn't, you can use the database wizard section of SPSS and allow you to pull in an Excel file, but you can also um, pull in data sets from other types of sources. So the database wizard would be something that would be particularly useful if you were using one of those secondary databases where somebody else collected the data and you're just looking to use that data. So this is more about different ways of getting uh, text and stuff like that. So um, that's basically an introduction to SPSS. Um, I know I showed you last week some of the results for regression analysis, and uh, that was fine. That was what I thought you needed to see as far as the output. But these are the screens that you would use to get that um, material. These would be so what you would do is you would buy SPSS loaded onto your computer, and then when you start running it, those are some of the screens you would see. So what I showed you last week in the class in the live lecture was what the output looks like, and what I showed you this week, what I wanted to show you this week is what the screens look like that you use to get that data, those that output from SPSS. Okay, and then at the end you would run all those to show the statistical parts of the statistical analyses that you want to run.